Well, good morning, everybody. I am delighted to be with you today. And unfortunately, I can't see my camera here. Wouldn't you know, week number 50 is when I have my first technology glitch. My vintage Mac, I was told by Apple that it's vintage, won't power up. So here I am by virtue of iPhone. So Michelle's going to help with some of the slide advancements. And anyway, so I am, oh, maybe it's starting up again. Who knows? But use the chat. Let us know what's going on today. And we're super excited to, oh, now I can see myself for better or worse. Oh, maybe it's for worse. Okay. I'm excited today. We got Stacey Soble joining us. Michelle, why don't you advance a few of the slides here? And we'll set the stage for our 50th session today. So remember, money is not the most important thing in life, but it is good to have conversations around because money is a currency that we all live and die by. So this is time for us to gather together. Michelle, why don't you keep moving the slides along here? It has been a crazy period here. This is sponsored by Qnity. One of our jobs is to make things that are complicated. Not about who's right, Robert. What does that mean? Okay, anyway, good to see Robert Cromians is on here. So one of the things we're looking for today is some light bulb moments. And here is our brain trust. I feel like, Michelle, you're flashing the slides back and forth. I can't keep up with you. So let's keep moving along slide by slide here. Okay, so brain trust. Stacey Soble will be officially added to the brain trust today. And Stacey will take you off mute here just in a moment. But Stacey is going to talk about a study that her organization recently did, really interesting findings from it. And Stacey's going to give us a sneak peek. She'll also give you access to how you could access a recording of a webinar they recently did where they brought life to the study. So it's a very interesting study that goes back over the first quarter of this year. It deals with business practices and just different things going on post-pandemic. Michelle, next slide, please. So reminder that these sessions are recorded and they're stored on YouTube. Good morning, Leon, by the way. And we've had some doozies. So this is week number 50. I feel like I should get nostalgic or something because we've taken this great journey together and so many of you have joined us for 40 of these sessions or something. We've got several regulars and I'm super grateful for you taking the time to join us each week because the whole purpose of getting together, whether you're in Arizona, whether you're in Pennsylvania, whether you're in Florida or Minnesota, wherever you are, whether you're in California, or Florida like Stacey, or New York like Sam, or Wisconsin like Trent, I could go on and on and on. It's important to develop community. And one of the reasons that we're doing this roundtable is to really elevate the financial sustainability of the professional salon industry. So thanks for joining us. Listen to the past recordings. Sam has had some great ones. We've had great sessions from our sponsors, Aura and Vish. And let's move on. And I'm going to, without much ado here, I'm a little bit thrown for a loop here because I'm not in my normal setup here. And you guys are catching me a little off guard and a little bit thrown for a loop here. I will adapt, okay, because I can't see very much. I can't really see the chat and what have you. But anyway, let's move over to, Michelle, why don't you remove the slides there? And let's, gosh, do I look terrible in this lighting? What am I going to do here? I'm going to have to move. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to turn some of these lights off. All right. Let's get Stacey off the mic and start a conversation. Stacey?
Hello.
How are
Thanks
you
for having
today?
me on your 50th episode. This is exciting.
I know. You know, Stacey, I've got to acknowledge you, first of all. I think I've known you for almost your entire, what did you say, 25 years?
25 years, yeah. It's been a while.
And I have some very fond memories of working with you, as I'm sure dozens of people on this call, because in recent years, you've really been definitely the face behind Salon Today. And for example, at the Salon Today Top 200 Awards, that everybody covets that picture with Stacey on stage holding their acknowledgement, and you're such a champion of this industry. So I so appreciate you and all your great work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And
I think, Tom, when I first met you, you were doing more accounting
yeah,
25 years ago. It's a long time ago.
Yes, I was back in the CFO days, and we wrote some articles together, and I actually published and drove you a little bit crazy with my writing style and what have you. But here we are today, still crazy after all these years. Now you're down in Florida.
I am.
So you've had
Northern
a journey.
Florida.
You've had a journey that's taken you from California to Illinois to Florida, and actually even over the last few years. So tell us a little bit more about you and yourself for people that don't know Stacey.
Well, I've been with Salon Today for, like we said, 25 years. I started as a freelance writer and then got a job with the staff and eventually became editor-in-chief, and have always focused on the salon business conversation my entire career. So that's my, our counterparts are Modern Salon. They focus more on the technology or the technical part of beauty, and I focus on the business part. And that's evolved from a publication to, now we do webinars and live events and ebooks and all kinds of digital content. So.
And research, which leads us to the conversation
we're going to talk about today.
So you recently conducted with a series of other sponsors a study, which I've been dying to get my access to, a study that's current and contemporary, and so that's what it is. It's a study that you recently performed. Bobit, because Bobit, the company you're with, does research. They have a research arm. And so they did this study on behalf of different sponsors. I think you had about 4,500 respondents. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And we did it over 3 weeks in May. So for research, that's very current.
Okay.
And the goal was to really look at how people are recovering from the pandemic, where they are now versus where they were before salons were closed. And then what kind of impacts has the pandemic had financially, on mental health, and everything. So that's kind of the scope of the study.
So it covered the first quarter. So some of the questions related with January through March, because there were questions related with sales and performance. And jumping quite a bit ahead here, do you anticipate doing the same study for the second quarter? Or is this going to be more like a one and done?
I don't know that we'll do it for the second quarter. We have a lot of other studies that we're doing in the field. We're doing one on the state of salon education. We're doing one on hair loss and hair thinning. But I do anticipate we'll do another one next year.
Okay, all right, great. So I found the study very interesting, and also just in the interest of setting expectations on your behalf and the group here, this has really just been released, and if people want to access this information, is the best way to go to the Salon Today website. Why don't you give people instructions of the best way to get the information?
So we did the webinar on this on June 21st. That was last Monday, with the sponsors that underwrote the survey, which was Ulta Beauty, Salon Centric, Redken, and Beauty Quest Group. So we want to thank them because this wouldn't have been possible without them. But we did a webinar then and went over some of the top line results. And you can get that at salontoday.com/webinar. And it'll be the one on the top. And those are free to view at any time. It was about an hour long. We are in the process of converting that into an ebook, and we'll be having more of the slides and visuals in the ebook. So it depends on how you like to consume things. If you want to listen to it, the webinar is great. If you want to dive into it and really digest it, the ebook will be coming out in a couple weeks. And we're doing what you do at Qnity. We're trying to, you saw the slides and we'll be showing them today, but that's what our data researcher puts out. And they're pretty intricate and sometimes a little hard to follow. We're the reason it's taken us 2 weeks to get the ebook is we're simplifying a lot of that data to make the visuals more graphic and easier to follow and a little more artistic.
All right, I'm dying to get your key insights from the study. And then I also want to mention to everybody listening in today, I reached out to a few people that I think have an appreciation for data. And you gave me some limited permission to share this information. So I want to be respectful of that. And I did mention to these individuals that you're seeing these slides. You're doing it to really help enrich today's conversation. So I have on standby Sam Bricata, Trent Lang, Kip Dodson, and Candace Gliato, who also have some observations as it relates to the study. That's going to be super fun to get their unfiltered comments about it, okay? But
and I'd love to hear how what they're seeing in the study compares with what they're seeing in actual life too. So
what were some of the things that just jumped out at you?
I think a couple of things jumped out at me. One was about pricing, that over 40% of people raise their prices. And then a lot of other people are changing the way they're looking at pricing. Instead of pricing a la carte, they're factoring in time and product cost use and coming up with an individual price per client, which I think is a kind of a positive move for us to make in the industry. And then the other one we were really fascinated around is 21 or 24% of people reported that they sought professional mental health during the pandemic. So I thought that was interesting to see that people shared that and that was something that helped people get through.
Yeah, that really jumped out at me too. One of the things, describe a little bit for the group who participated in this study. So who's the audience? So 4,500, 55 or something like that respondents. Yeah. What's the makeup of the respondents?
30% were owners of salons. About 18% were independent stylists. And then the rest of that makeup was individual stylists that worked in a salon, barbers, esthetician, massage therapists. But we didn't include schools in this study because we are doing a school study separately. This was all people who have a license that are working in a salon or an owner.
You're doing a school study. That was not lost on me. We'll have to talk about that later. Okay.
We're doing state of education study. So yeah, schools will be a part of that one.
Okay, perfect. What else jumped out at you as part of the study? I mean, there's some things that jumped out at me. And it had to do with rationale why sales were down, and which I think it was something like 43% of the respondents reported that sales were down from the previous period last year, which is no surprise. That was the first quarter of this year. Yeah. A lot of momentum that we've seen has really taken off in March, April, May, and June. We've seen a lot of people have record months, but it doesn't surprise me. But a comment that I saw was only 9% of people that said sales were down responded that it was due to price sensitivity, which validates what we talked about, price increase and average ticket. So any comments on that?
Well, the biggest reason people said that sales were down is they said their clients aren't fully back yet, which is kind of in contrast to what I'm hearing from a lot of salons, which is they've got more appointments than they can fill with their staff right now. So that was kind of interesting to me that that's the perception that's why sales are down. They were also because of social restriction. The restrictions were still in place. But and how they can work right now. A lot of people are not working with assistants right now, or they weren't in that first quarter. So their sales were down, but their average tickets were up. So that was an interesting observation. But we did expect sales to be down in the first quarter, and retail sales were also down. So, and I think it was 40% said they were dramatically down, and another 20 or so percent said that they were slightly down. So, over 60% said that they were down in the first quarter. Gotcha. Versus the period of time before their salons closed down in 2020.
Okay. Let's invite a couple people to the conversation, okay, Stacey? Okay. And make this a little bit more of a dialogue. So Michelle, maybe we can give Sam Bricata, Kip, and Trent the mic. I think Candace is just waking up this morning in California, and she's just listening in. Sam, let's get you off mute. Good morning, Sam. How are you? Are we going to get to see your face today?
Which face? No, I'm just kidding. Let me see if I can do that. I know how to. I have. Go ahead with your question.
Well, so Sam, you looked at the study, and again, let's not put Stacey on the spot here, because she is not like, she hasn't dug into every single slide. But when you read through it a couple times. You had some interesting comments. What struck you from the study as a salon owner and representing other people on this call?
Well, I heard, and part of what I wrote to you, I heard a fair amount of optimism, and I think there was a breakaway, and I sent you that quote this morning from Warren Buffett. I think there was a pretty cataclysmic separation in our industry over the last 15, 18 months. And there's an upper group of people, and it's just not 1 or 3%. You know, after reading that, I realized my salon is in the 1% group of sales volume and all that, but we are in New York. But what I noticed was there's a separation where there's a roughly middle to 60% of the bottom half that just literally got kicked hard, and or not just financially hurt, but are psychologically spinning. And there's a separate group, and I feel like I'm a part of it, that I feel that psychological challenge. I see it in the people around me. But business-wise, I feel that we're stronger and we're moving forward faster than ever before. I mean, I'm working more now positively than I have in a long time, not trying to make up, but positively. So I saw that in that. I saw a very big optimism on the top side. But I read a lot. I read every bit of it, Stacey, and I really appreciate the people who sponsored it and that you guys took this challenge on, because I love reading that stuff. I think it's just so important to dig into it. But I saw that separation, and I saw an optimism, but I saw a lot of fear, and I think it's going to drive change that to me is probably the most important, and that is watching the numbers. And Stacey, what you spent so much of your time doing is
Right.
say, listen to the numbers, guys. They tell us a story. Yes, be in touch with your employees and be in touch with the people. But I just think that the numbers part of it is one thing. And I'll just one other observation. In my opinion, California is I said it to you, Tom, it's almost like comparing it to England. It's another country. How hard Robert and Carrie and all my friends in California took a hit is just so, it's just almost impossible compared to the 110 days we were closed in New York City. So I think you have to pick it apart when you read it and try to take it in regions a little bit. I think you have to go in and look at Louisiana, what, 3 or 4 people that responded to it, according to what I read. That's my home state. So I think you have to really pick it apart, but there's some real gems in there. So I'll stop at that point and let Trent and the other guys comment on like that.
Well, I want to address something. I mean, I thought of you a lot, Sam, when I first looked over the results, because we had just done the webinar with Minerva, and you had talked about recovery in New York and that it was coming back, but slowly, very slowly. But you were very positive about it. And that's kind of how I felt the overall feeling of the study was. People were talking about things were down in the first quarter, but they were still very optimistic because they were seeing the forward projection of getting better. And we had a lot of questions about optimism and how they felt about their salaries, how they felt about their current position, how they felt their salon was on the road to recovery. And all those were overwhelmingly positive.
Well, I'll just throw out one, though, I think very optimistic point. I'm a little bit old-fashioned, and I don't want to jinx the subject, but you know, I lost the Upper East Side Salon here in New York City, and we combined everybody together. And as I said before, we not only didn't lose anybody, we did add people. But as of June, we're trending about 3% off of our 2 salon volume at the end of 2019. 3%. That's a June.
That's pretty amazing.
Isn't, so I'm just saying that we really haven't changed that much, and we're not at full capacity yet. We closed down for 3 days over this coming weekend to do a little redoing of the salon with a few new Minerva stations.
So a couple things that Sam said here. First of all, the California piece. And one of the things I did notice, and Sam, thank you for that. There's a few things on this I want to piggyback. The first thing I want to note that California absolutely, to begin with, was the outlier. I personally had ownership in a California salon many years ago. And at the time, I remember thinking what a headache it was. It took more energy for one location in California than it did 7 locations in the Twin Cities. So it's always been a very onerous state to do business with. But now it's at a whole nother level in terms of being an outlier. And one of the things I did notice about this study, Stacey, is that it did have a lot of California respondents. The other thing I wanted to comment is the optimism piece. From the lens that I see, I mean, I feel like I'm in the front line like you are, Stacey, and many of us. The second quarter is the quarter this year. That is when I saw the shift. That is where some of our polls and our research, and that is when the psychology changed. That's when sales changed. That's when we started to do polling around this. So I think it's really interesting. And in fact, that's a good segue. Michelle just sent me a message. We actually have a poll for the group here. So while we're talking, Michelle's going to pull up a poll, and we're going to allow people to, while they listen in here, say how the second quarter looked like for them. So if you could just take this poll while we're having the conversation, that would be great. And then what I want to do now is make sure that I'm still on this call here. I'm close this. Okay, there I am. So let's see if we can get Trent. Trent, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you, Tom?
Great. Stacey, so Trent Lang is a salon owner in Wisconsin. Great guy, 3 locations. Do you know Trent?
The name's familiar. What's your name? What's your salon?
Echo Salon.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah.
Hi, Stacey. How are you?
Hi. You've been in our salons of the year.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and Trent was early Roundtable member because I thought it was amazing that when everybody was scared, he went out and added a location. He added a location during the pandemic. So now, Trent, you had a chance to get through this study, and you're kind of a data guy. So what did you pull out of this?
Yeah, I thought what you shared was really interesting. And what I found the most interesting was I think that the industry is somewhat in an area or in a time of just flux and change. And to see the answers that people were giving or responding to on what I'm looking at as an unknown future was very surprising to me. Some of the things like, and I think what it's really done is it's opened up the ability for us to look at our industry and see areas where we're behind and really start to push those forward. So for example, technology, we're forced into technology now. And I think it's bringing up some of the archaic practices that some of the vendors are driving that need to be looked at. So one of your slides talked about how many people sell product through their website. And it was 40+% did not.
Right.
And a lot of that is driven by vendors not allowing that behavior. And there is no barriers on the internet. So the fact that that is still in place is crazy in my opinion. But now pushing into the pandemic and coming out and seeing all the technology, I'm hoping that some of that stuff that's in place that's been held over just because we've always done it that way starts to change.
And I think it'll have to start changing. I mean, if you look at things like Salon Interactive just inked a big partnership with Salon Centric. So Salon Interactive helps salons create an online presence. And, the distributor actually ships the product, but they sell it through the salon with an individualized website. So the fact that Salon Centric is partnering with them now to bring that to all of their partners is a pretty strong move.
Absolutely.
Stacey, it almost seems like Trent is a plant, because when I talked to you yesterday, a couple things, Trent just called out some of your major insights, not only from the study, but also the pandemic. And that is as it relates to e-commerce and technology. So I know that that's something that you've been very top of mind for you too.
Well, I know just from our Salon Today 200 last year, our big essay question was about, how are you dealing with the pandemic? And there were so many people, and these are, top salons that enter this contest. So many were establishing their e-commerce presence during the shutdown. That's when they took the time to kick that off. So that was for us, was to see a big trend getting into that during the pandemic. And that was a way to bring in some money while salons were closed. But it's so, it's really how your consumers are shopping today. So you need to be there to meet them where they're at. So of course, we're still seeing some behind. And what was amazing, I think there was, and I imagine these are independent stylists, but there were something like a quarter of people that don't sell retail at all.
Yeah.
Which was also eye-opening to me.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely.
Trent, what other ahas did you get from the study? You said, you talked a little bit about virtual learning. No, that's Candace, actually, excuse me, but I'm sure that you also noticed that too. Let me see my notes from you here. So actually yours came in this morning. I didn't print them out.
Yeah.
Anything
So
else
I
come
think,
to mind?
Yeah, the other thing that a lot of my comments picked up on was when we entered Q1 and Q2 of this year, volume picked up dramatically, and it was a lot of new client acquisition. And I think that we're gonna be faced as salons with starting to make decisions on this volume and these setbacks that are entering our salon. So with volume, in our case, the calls, once our online booking hits past 7 days, the phone volume picks up, and the duration of that call is now beyond the normal 2 minutes we had. It's now up to 4.5 minutes. So these types of things are entering into salons and forcing us to make decisions on what I believe is volume that is not necessarily going to sustain itself. So in our client intake forms, we ask clients what's their normal salon routines, how often do they get their hair cut, these types of questions, because we want to understand if they're going to be retained and regular salon clients. And what we're finding is that a lot of clients coming out now are usually once a year clients, but they haven't had their haircut for 2 years, and this is their yearly trim. So as salon owners, we're making decisions on how do we turn that type of client into a regular client? How do we set our stylists up to be able to do that? But what I think is going to happen is we're making decisions on volume that won't necessarily be there come midsummer or later. And what types of issues does that introduce to our salons? So.
And when do you give them that survey? Because if you can't fill, if you've got appointment, your book is booked out, can you prioritize those people that are once a year clients to
and that's kind
bottom
of
of the list?
That's what we're looking at now, because if the once a year new clients are coming in, it's driving our regulars to call, and we have to find a way to get them in, and it's creating, other hardship.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's introducing things that are abnormal to our types of business, and now we're having to figure out how to deal with it. It's a great problem to have, but again, our goal is to turn them into regular clients. So how do we do that without making the investment that we're going to have to retract later on in the year if that volume doesn't hold true? So I think those were two real large things that are top of mind that I think a lot of us are going to have to deal with in the next 4 to 6 months and make decisions on and spend money on, that we need to look at carefully. And your survey brings it to light. Everybody is seeing that if you're growing, your new client acquisition counts are higher. And we don't have the data yet to know if the retention is going to maintain.
Right.
So Michelle, you did the poll. Why don't you summarize the poll for the second quarter here? All right, so it looks to me that second quarter sales, slightly 36%, so significantly lower is only 4%. Slightly lower is 36%. So let me repeat the question. Don't get ahead of myself. The question is, how do your 2021 second quarter service sales compared to them for the shutdown? And again, significantly lower, 4%, slightly lower, 36%, slightly higher. Wow, look at this. So definitely we're seeing, this is not apples to apples, Stacey, it's different audiences. And but
Different audience and different quarter. I think it makes a world of difference too.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is isolate the quarter because I really believe that second quarter was the pivotal quarter here. And now let's look at product sales. Product sales, and I'm surprised by this because only 25% said slightly lower compared to 36% said slightly lower for service sales. So very interesting. All right, I'm going to move away from that. We've got another poll coming up here in a little bit here. Kip Dodson. So Kip, I think we've got you on standby. Good morning, Kip. How are you?
I'm great. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. So Stacey, I don't know if you know Kip. He's down in Nashville. He has a single location, very large single location, very successful. It's called A Moment's Peace, multiple service categories, and Kip's been a regular on there. He's also an engineer by training, so he loves this data kind of stuff. So Kip, what did you get out of the study?
Oh, I loved it. I combed through it. I thought it was very well done and put together. I think Sam, I think Sam nailed a lot of great points. Trent nailed a lot of great points. The ones I would bring that are unique and different are that, inflation is hitting us and everybody knows it. So if you're not increasing your pricing, you're making a big mistake.
Say that again. Say that again, just because I feel like it needs to be said again. I totally agree with you. Say it again.
Inflation is hitting everybody and everybody knows it. So if you are not increasing your pricing, you are making a huge mistake.
Okay. All right.
So we should be, and I try to do it incrementally, just a little bit, but you could probably do it more than normal, immediately. So that I think the other key observation that I think the dichotomy of things that you saw in that survey, like you talked about people seeking mental health, but I saw 87% of the people said they were happy, somewhat happy to extremely happy. Right. So I think the reason there's such a dichotomy is because everybody is in a different location in this United States. And so in Nashville, I'm one county away from Nashville, which is very liberal, blue, but I'm in the most red county of Tennessee. And so we're only 5 miles apart, and the economy is different in downtown Nashville than where I am. So I'm seeing extremely good results of clients coming to me because we're in the red area, but because in the blue area, you can't really operate as well as you would like to. So I think that's part of the dichotomy of the data that we're seeing. It depends on where you are, and that survey was 8-to-1 oversampled in California versus every other state.
Right. And one thing we'd like to do is break out that California data and look at it separately, and we haven't had a chance to do that yet. So because it is a different world, and you have to look at it separately.
So the only other theme, I think the overarching theme I got was just that people are seeking simple answers to their situation, that I think we as leaders here need to start thinking about how can we hand them a better pathway so that they feel confident that people have researched what they should do better. And I think better online learning solutions that we can just deliver like Tom does. And I think that evaluating technology and how they should use it. And then I also even brought up to Tom that your Salon Interactive solution is definitely something that could be a game changer in our industry.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Michelle, you had another, Kip, thank you for that. Great insights. You always have excellent insights. We've got Candace Gliata here, but I'm gonna share some of her observations, but let's bring up the next poll here. All right, so which of the following applies to your pricing since pre-opening? Instituted a COVID-19 charge. You guys can see what it is, but go ahead and answer this. And then Michelle, a little bit when we're done with that, why don't you share the findings, okay? So Stacey, I'm going to share with you just some ahas that Candace Gliata had from out in California.
Okay.
Good morning, Candace. And Candace, if you want to come off mic, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. If you do, just start speaking, okay? All right. She said virtual learning being a preferred method for education and training. That was really interesting. So obviously this was the era that introduced virtual training. All right. Even though it existed, it became for the masses. Okay. She said, so Candace, as she points out, this is a huge opportunity to save time and money while meeting stylist needs. So that was definitely something that came out loud and clear, Stacey, is learning and virtual and all of that, which probably isn't a big surprise.
Well, and I think it's going to change. I mean, I think it's going to change the way things are done in the future. We're getting ready for our data driven. We're going to do it live because we also know that there's a number of people that are excited to get back together, but we're also going to record it and have the sessions available on demand. So I think you'll see a lot more education vendors doing that where they're offering both options.
Yeah. Linnell just chimed in from the school world and they're doing their virtual, if I heard her right, virtual interviews. Let me make sure I saw the comment come up here. She said, as a school, we're doing virtual career fairs. Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah. So, all right.
Hi, Tom. It's Candace.
Is that Candace?
Yeah.
Candace.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi,
How are you?
How are you, Stacey?
Good.
Candace, you also were surprised with advertising mediums. You want to speak to that one?
Well, yeah, I was a little surprised to see that there were more people advertising on Facebook than Instagram because
they're about neck and neck, but I was surprised that it was that high too.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to be seen on Facebook than it is on Instagram. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to try and lean into Instagram a lot more because it's definitely more friendly to our industry.
God, it just seems so obvious, guys. But anyway, Candace, you also talked about new clients. 36% said they're seeing more new clients than pre-pandemic. Comments about that?
Yeah, I mean, Trent was just commenting on it, but we are seeing those once a year clients for sure. But also, and this is definitely because I'm in a smaller town, we're seeing a huge increase in new guests that we are retaining because they were commuting to bigger cities and getting their hair done out there. And so now they're looking for kind of the higher end salon in the small town, and they're great clients too. And they're way less sensitive to price because they were in the big city. And then also a lot of people, and I don't think because they failed, but a lot of stylists kind of moved on to other things and are, we saw that in the study too, that, people stopped doing hair. So those clients are looking for a new place to go. And also a lot of people moved to their house and started doing hair out of their house. And that's not for every client. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that. So we're seeing a huge, huge influx in new clients.
And a percentage of salons closed forever. So those clients are also looking for a new salon. But I also think that the length of times that salons were closed, that was, people's lifestyles changed too. They weren't going into work, they were working from home. So their beauty needs were different. But I also think it gave them that's kind of a natural time to break with a salon if you're not happy or you wanted to try something else. So I think we're seeing some of that as well.
Absolutely. We saw a fair amount of turnover in our existing clients. And then lucky enough, several new clients to fill the chair.
So Leon Alexander, who Stacey, you and I, of course, know very well. Good morning, Leon. Thanks for joining us. He made a comment that sort of supporting what you're saying there, Candace. Inner city salons are not doing as good as suburban salons, as quite a number of companies still have employees working from home. So that certainly validates what you said. Now, Stacey, you also, not Stacey, Candace, you had, I think, another comment related to 15% of owners lost over half of their team.
Yeah, I was amazed by that too. That's painful.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that was happening out there, but to see that big of a percentage, losing that big of a percentage of their team, that's brutal.
Yeah. All right, Candace, thanks for coming off the mic. Candace, is there anything else that jumped out at you from the study? And thank you for taking the time to read it.
Oh yeah, no, well, just the comment on the virtual learning, that's a huge opportunity to, we've been having some amazing educators, in our salon, but not necessarily in our salon. So we've had the opportunity to offer a lot more technical education that we wouldn't have been able to do even if there was no pandemic. We've been doing screenings for the staff and they're loving it and getting a lot more, just a lot more opportunity to learn.
Con from Karen Allen says that to the point about virtual, she said at the same time, stylists are hungry for on-site and people training. And Stacey, you also mentioned the data-driven conference being at live and then in person. The same thing with 2 to 10 is it's gonna be live and in person. I think we're really finding that people want to be together, and I
you
think
probably did the same thing we did. We polled some people because we didn't know. We polled our vendors. Are you willing to come and show? And we, you don't want to invest all that time and money in a show and then nobody comes. So, but almost overwhelmingly everybody wanted to come. So,
well, I'll tell you exactly what we did for 2 to 10. We already had a ton of people that were pre-registered for 2020, and we carried their reservation for the conference into 2021. And before we signed the dotted line on a very expensive hotel contract, I personally sent emails to each member setting it in because we're about ready to sign this, and everybody responded, yes, I'm in. I think I heard back from everybody. So Con, to your point, virtual is here to stay, but there's also this deep appreciation for the in-person gathering and connecting. And I'm sure that resonates with so many people here. So, all right, let's shift gears here. Michelle, do we have any other polls that, let's do the finding of that last poll, okay? What do we come up with? 31% raised prices overall, 42% raised prices on some services, 19%, so it looks like 19%, well, no one lowered prices. Stacey, I actually saw some people in this in the study that actually lowered. Yeah. So only 20% said pricing hasn't changed. I guess maybe I'm not surprised by that. But Michelle, do we have any final polls that relate to, here we go. All right, so this is the final question that we're gonna ask that piggybacks a little bit on your study, Stacey, and that is based upon 2021, the second quarter, April through June, we have multiple choice on the road to recovery, for your business, the industry. So anyway, we'll see what responses come up. So we'll come back to that. Stacey, I am going to change the subject now.
okay.
And I'm going to get into something very near and dear to you and me, and that is the Emerging Leaders Competition that we've been involved with for the last 4 years. And I totally missed doing it last year. So just to provide a context to this, 5 years ago, we wanted to make sure that the 2 to 10 project was relevant for multiple generations. And we wanted to make sure that it was a leadership conference, not just owners. And so we started this thing called the Emerging Leaders Competition back, it was 5 or 6 years ago. And Stacey immediately jumped in as not only a judge, but also a sponsor. So Stacey, Qnity, 2 to 10, and Salon State have sponsored this Emerging Leaders Competition. You've been a judge. James Griffith from Florida has been a judge. James might be on it with us this morning. I think he might be doing hair, but Christine probably is too. And then we've had other judges, and it's just been amazing, the insights. So we've had different themes. One year it was the Salon of the Future. So design the Salon of the Future, space and all that. Then there was marketing. Then there was relentless recruitment. And it was just,
Right.
I think we were all blown away by the contributions by these emerging leaders.
And then we did one where they had to come up with a new service and then do the whole launch plan for it.
All right.
think
I
that's-
I knew there was another one. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they would get the topic at the conference, which typically was in April or May, and then they didn't know each other before 2 to 10, and they were assigned to groups, and they worked together offline for like 60 days, put a lot of work into it, and then they did their presentations in front of Stacey and the judges. And, we awarded winners. So here we are, ready to do it again this year. And Stacey and I would love to get some things going in the chat. So is there a topic that those of you that are listening on today that would enjoy getting some innovation, because this is really about innovation from emerging leaders? Is there a topic that you think could be a good topic for the study? If so, put it in the chat. The other thing, Stacey, I wanted to, I let you know earlier that we've got a new judge this year. And Michelle, if you can find Will Simpson, please, from Green Circle, or Will, do what you need to do in terms of pushing buttons. And let's get Will into the conversation. So there, Will. Hi, Will, how are you this morning?
Hey, Tom. Hey, Stacey.
Hi.
I'm doing very well, thank you. And great to hear everybody sharing their responses to the insights from last week's survey results.
And we're excited to have you on board for the emerging leaders as a judge.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think, emerging leaders, the Salon of the Future has always kind of been near and dear to Green Circle salons, because we believe that, the future of the industry and the future of the planet are kind of inextricably linked. So I think that we're really excited to sit on the panel and to hear all the great ideas that these future leaders are sharing.
Now,
And I think that's the true value of this competition. And we, what you didn't mention is we always cover it afterwards. We cover, the presentations of each of the teams. And they get judged on the value of the presentation and how well they work together as well. But then ideas that come out of it are simply amazing. The things that they think through, sometimes you look at it with a real world lens and it's not really applicable in a real salon situation, but they come up with some amazing ideas that could be curbed and would be really, or something really interesting to pursue.
yeah, and I was remiss in mentioning it was covered. So any of you that want to read about or learn about, you can just go into the Salon Today website and go through the search and pull up 2 to 10 or emerging leaders, and you can find the articles. Linnell Lynch put, I would love the emerging leaders share how they can share their story to recruit more individuals to join the profession to solve our job demand. Linnell, amen. I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a very good one. And Stacey, I've had some ideas since you and I even spoke yesterday. Will, back to you for a moment, okay? You're up in Vancouver, correct?
That's correct.
So I'm going to ask you to just quickly share with the group here, because Canada is so intertwined with who we are and what we do. What's going on in Canada? Give it us in like a minute, okay?
Yeah, I think things have been interesting in Canada. We don't have the same kind of support for associations in Canada, and so, and in fact, we've just had the head of the ABA, Alain Odette, moved to Forest. So with that was a big win for software, but kind of a loss for the industry, from a professional representation standpoint. So interestingly, it's been one of those things where living in Canada, we have to kind of see what's happening in the US. We have to take information like what Stacey's shared with us, and then sort of read between the lines and see, to Kip's point, we have to determine where does Canada align more with what's coming out of California versus what's coming out of the rest of the country. And so it's kind of an interesting sort of interpretation exercise whenever these studies are conducted. But I think that it's terrific to have that as sort of a reference point. And of course, understanding that the Canadian industry and the Canadian population is roughly 10% of the US, it allows us to kind of apply these findings and sort of allow that to direct how we do business. So Canada, I will definitely say that we need more representation, and we need better support, to build up our associations so that we have better professional networking. But in the absence of that, I think it's terrific to know that there are other groups, Red Bloom and the other Canadian groups that are represented in places like 2 to 10 and the other, ISBN, Data Driven. You do see a lot of great, well-known Canadian business leaders at these events and as part of these groups.
Excellent.
And
Well,
we have them in the 200 as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly hope that you'll be able to travel in October and see us face to face in Chicago. And thanks for agreeing to be a judge and for everything that you do, Will. You're an amazing guy, and I find just an excuse to bring you into the conversation. So,
well, thank you, Tom. I got to say, traveling to 2 to 10 is absolutely the most exciting thing to come out of the post-COVID world. Just this idea that I get to cross the border again and I get to be back reunited with the industry. That's what we're holding out for.
Very good. Words well spoken. Well, Stacey, I am looking at my watch here, and you're not seeing my normal protocol because I've got other normal protocol, but there is a protocol that I will not forget. And that is, I do need to award you the official membership to the Brain Trust. And so awarding the $1 million light bulb for your contribution.
Oh, nice.
And so now everybody will collectively give you a virtual applause. Let's give Stacey a virtual applause.
Thank you very much.
Also, Sam and Trent and Candace and Kip, thanks for taking some time to read through a 94-page presentation and to pull your insights out of it. So very much appreciated. Michelle, do we have any other business that we need to conduct? Anything else that we need to share with the group here you can think of? You're on mute.
Just a reminder that we are off next week for the holiday, and we will be back together on July 14th.
Excellent. All right. So we are taking a week off. Let me see if there's any other comments here.
Did we see the last data point?
Did we see the last data point? Whoops, hold
Oh,
on.
wow. That's great.
Are you sharing it right now?
Yeah, looks like everybody's pretty optimistic. 87% say business is on the road to recovery. 57% say industry is on the road to recovery. No one says that the business or the industry is not on the road to recovery. And 10% say it's a little too early to tell. Things are still too volatile.
Well, maybe like attracts like, because this is a group that takes the time every week to be on here, which means that they're focused on the future. And I am so hugely bullish. All the numbers are suggesting more and more. It's not to say, Sam brought up a really good point as he mentioned a quote by Warren Buffett, and it really has to do with who's really winning in the new economy. And unfortunately, the bigger businesses are getting their disproportionate share, and they're doing actually better than small businesses. But it doesn't mean that we can't hunker down as small business owners and managers and find our reality. I mean, it's I think that this is a very special group that takes time with us. And Stacey, I'm so glad that you got to be part of this and see a lot of your friends in this. I'm sure you're getting a lot of comments and what have you. So I'm honored
to be here. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
All right. Well, guys, we will see you in 2 weeks. We have the school roundtable coming up in an hour. We are going to cover some aspects of the study then. Again, I want to thank all of you for being part of this. Have a great 4th of July weekend and an awesome second half of the year. Thanks again, guys.